It is a freezing morning in my shop. It was about 5 degrees in here this morning, and I got my space heaters going, and it's slowly climbing, but I think the best I'll probably hope for is low 20s by the middle of the day. It's minus 10 outside, so it's cold morning. I am going to lower the body today and start some of the final fitment surrounding, kind of the way the body fits in relationship to the aluminum panels. I know in some cases you need to trim some of the panels so you're not crushing the bulb seals. So I'm going to kind of go through and do a mock-up fit of the body. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time the body's been on and off. So I've gotten it down, it's pretty easy to do. Also I'm going to be building or making my grommets that accommodate the roll bar going through the body. So I'm going to start laying those out. Unfortunately, where my roll bar goes to the body, it's not flat. There's some contours there, so it'll be a little bit of a challenge to make something there. So I'm going to kind of be feeling my way through that one. The other part too, I want to make sure that in terms of the way the radiator fits in there and fan shroud and everything else, muffler, everything works under the body, and I don't have any like pinch points or anything like that. So stick with me here. I'll lower the body in place. I know you've seen this before. I'll make it quick, and then we'll dive into these other parts. So here's my dilemma. Well, it's not really a dilemma. I guess it was planned, but the roll bars, are very fixed in the way they mount. They're not the mounting of the roll bar is not adjustable. But however, I need the ability to be able to move the body around a little bit, and also space between the body and the roll bar to account for some flexing that's going to happen just during normal use. So making these little trim rings here that have to fill up this gap. And give me that variability, that flexibility between the body and the roll bar. The issue, I'm having or will be attempting to address here is this is not a smooth surface. It's not flat in any one plane. So, I've got this scenario here where it rocks, and the same with this back here is the hole goes through a curved section, not a flat plane. So what I'm going to do is, this is kind of roughly cut to shape. I've got a lot of sanding it to kind of firm it all up, but I'm going to start to kind of manually pound this into shape using some using an anvil type thing, and kind of creep up on this shape, or this plane, I should say. And then I have a piece of rubber that will sit inside this that will fill up the rest of the gap, and that's where that variability comes. So that's where I'm at now. I'm going to start hammering on this, and we'll see where that takes me. After quite a bit of pounding, this is what I've gotten it to. Obviously still got to do some cleaning up, but see, it forms to the shape of the body pretty well. There's a little bit of dip in the fiberglass at that seam, but I'm not concerned because that's actually going to be filled anyways and block sanded and smooth. So I think this is about as good as I'm going to get it. You can see it kind of a, let's see if I can get it better. And it's kind of an interesting shape here now. It's not, certainly not flat anymore. So now I've just got the other side to do, and then the two rear mounts to the thing, and I'll be all set. I didn't want any hardware showing in terms of how these grommets mount to the body, so I decided to weld on threaded posts and then grind the top smooth, so they'll drop through a couple of holes, and then you'll thread them on from the underside.
I could have.
So this is that rubber that I've used in other parts of the project. It is a flooring material. It's about an 1/8 inch thick. You can get it at the big box store. Super cheap stuff. Works really well though. It's relatively easy to cut. It cuts cleanly, which is also important. But I've used it in exterior applications, and it holds up well under UV as well. So I'm assuming and it does smell a little bit like EPDM when I'm cutting it. So I'm assuming it's something along the lines of an EPDM. But in any event, it's cheap, works well. I have a big roll of it in my shop, and that's why I use it everywhere.
I could have.
So here's the finished welded exhaust tip. You'll get to see how it goes in shortly here, and I'll kind of explain what's going on with this really weird shaped unit. Hopefully it all makes sense in a few minutes. Yeah, well, this is always some scary stuff. This is always some scary stuff cutting into the side of the car, but the beauty of fiberglass is pretty much everything's fairly easily repaired, but I've done quite a few measurements on this. I know that this little hole is exactly centered over where my exhaust is coming out. So threw in my 2.5-inch hole saw and let's have at it. So with the exhaust tips welded up and the exhaust system, done on the inside, it allowed me to figure out where they're going to protrude through the side of the body. This is a hole you're only going to want to cut once, that's for sure. So I wanted to make sure that I had everything lined up perfectly, body in place, and take some good solid measurements to know where how this is going to happen. But it also occurred to me I need to really take a solid measurement on how much these things are going to move. The engine rocks back and forth quite a bit. So I did. I started it up and took some measurements and found that the exhaust tips are roughly going to move about a 1/2 inch in either direction. So it's plus or minus a 1/2 inch. Not much to side, but up and down definitely. So that gave me a good solid number to work with in terms of how big the openings are going to be to go through the side of the car. So that's what I did. Made a template, cut it open, and this is what I've come up with. This is where we sit. And honestly, I love the way they look. It's a little bit of a kind of Mad Max-ish, I guess. But, they're a little shocking to look at. You kind of expect that flame's gonna come shooting out or something, I guess. But, I love it. I think it's great. And they sound great. The tips actually, kind of oddly enough, it did change the sound a little bit. Which is kind of funny. So here's what I did. So this is not a true dual exhaust. Both of those are not active. I feel a little bit like a poser because really only this one has anything coming out of it. And I'll explain why. It was really important for me to make sure that I have the highest exhaust velocity leaving this pipe. If you go from 1 into 2, you're essentially doubling the volume of the exit. So you're slowing the gases down, and just kind of like a nozzle on a hose. I wanted to make sure I'm spraying this exhaust gas, these fumes, as far away from the car as possible. Best way to accomplish that is to keep it at a 2.5-inch opening. However, it looked anemic with just one. I mocked it up, and it was definitely a strong no-go. So 2 it is, 2 tips, 1 faux, 1 real. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing, but I am thinking that maybe I'm getting a little more airflow out of the engine compartment. So I'll just say that, and that'll make me feel a little bit better. But as you'll see, I made no attempt to disguise it being fake. See if you can see in here, but so that second tip goes to nowhere. And I'm okay with it. So, give you a quick peek on the other side here. But pretty cool looking. You know, I think gets me where I want to be. And I'm not quite sure if I'm done doing something with the edge where those exhaust tips come through. I might do some sort of flange that finishes that off, make it a little cleaner, a little more finished, but who knows? We'll see. But there's where we are. On to the next project. So like most, I dreaded the installation of the windshield. You know, a small mistake here leads to needing to replace the windshield. Maybe not right off in the beginning, but down the road a little bit if you have this thing under any tension. So I went back and forth. I watched as much YouTube content as I could find on how to do a factory 5 windshield. And just kind of dove right in and slowly and screwed these the support brackets into the windshield, and everything seemed to go okay until I got to until I got to this point. So I have a little issue with the windshield, installing these arms in the windshield. Driver's side went in perfectly, all the screw holes lined up. Passenger side, however, is a different story. I'm gonna, you know, that screw goes in nicely, that one goes in nicely, but when I get to this one, it's off by almost 3/16 of an inch. If that's showing. So gotta figure out something here. What it is actually is the bar itself is off by about 3/16 of an inch, so it's not flat. And I'm not sure best approach here. I know this is some soft stuff, it's brass. I'm gonna try to bend it straight. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do that and preserve this finish, but we'll see. But certainly as it sits now, this absolutely will not work. I will have to, I'm going to have to make some sort of change here. Well, problem solved. I was able to clamp this into a vise, covered it in rubber, clamped it into a vise here, and then lever this back in this direction and ended up taking this bend out. So now this is flat. Or close enough to be flat where things line up, but that was, prior to that, that was more than 3/16 of an inch off here. So we're all set, holes line up, so I can finish the installation of this part. That's not white. So, okay, lift it up. You have to lift up a little bit because it's got to go back out that angle, and then make sure it slides in no tension. Okay, now I just need you to hold that up. Okay, lift it, hold it there. Now we're going to lift it back out. And just make sure you lift it straight that way. Got it. Thank you, honey.
Hey.
Love Love you.
Yeah.
Wife exits.